Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The last chance qualifiers are continuing around the world, and big drama last night as the EMEA LCQ concludes for Karmine Corp. After defeat to Na'Vi, they are going home. Their season is now officially done. ScreaM not happy about how things have gone, taking responsibility, but also pointing fingers at Newzera after quitting effectively for various reasons in the middle of the season, saying that kind of ruins their year. Very much enjoyed to your perspective in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, can you believe it? DSG as an organisation have actually had some success here. This was in the, qualifying for top 8 of the Game Changers kind of tournament in the North American side. Fantastic to see actually. And I mean, yeah, great result from these girls over the last day or so. And even Hannah got a nice little 1 versus 4 here with comms. I guess we'll just go full screen for this one because this is pretty disgusting. Obviously the first 2 line up. So I'm happy for Toast, you know, because Toast has had a hard time with his main DSG roster. It was an absolute shambles. He decided to commit again further to see if they could make it work on the Game Changer side, and so far it's looking pretty promising. So they've qualified for the main event, just about made it through the closed qualifier for this. This is how it's all gone. So the top 8 teams remain. They begin on July the 26th playing, and these were all the teams that qualified through the upper side. Version 1, Evil Geniuses, Shubha Rebellion, XZ, and then in the loser side, we had Overkill, Black Complexity, FaZe Clan, and then Disguise, Game Changers. Just about made it through to one of the final series they played. So congrats to everyone involved. I'm just happy for Toast that he's actually had some organisation have some success, and they qualify for the main event of the Game Changers Series 2 North America, which begins in a few days' time with this bracket. Version 1 will be the favourites, I imagine. But we'll see how far this DSG team can make it, because they're going to be well liked by the fans, because people want to see Toast succeed, I think, at this point. This is the Pacific LCQ. Zeta Division, after very much struggling to start off with against RRQ, finally warmed up. They took down Team Secret pretty impressively, and they make the finals. Gen.G also took down RRQ, so it's Team Secret versus Gen.G again. Team Secret won it the first time around. You'd think they'd win it again, but it's not for sure. And then Zeta will play in the grand finals on the Sunday. This is obviously a big deal. Only one team goes to champions. I think it'd be nice to see if Zeta could make it here, just because, you know, a team with a great fan base and great players like Laz on the Chamber's been looking particularly deadly lately, which is exciting for the rest of the league if they can get there to the World Championship. But only one of these teams make it, and I do find it a little bit, it's not strange. I know how the format works, that because Fnatic won Masters Tokyo, their region gets 2 spots. But it does feel a little bit like, I'm not so convinced that the EMEA teams actually deserve those 2 spots, because I haven't seen any Valorant that's massively impressed me from that LCQ so far. We'll get onto that in a second. We will get back to the Americas as well. I did want to mention one quick quote here from Kaplan after a difficult season. Of course, Kaplan comes in as the head coach halfway through the year after Psycho was effectively fired from the team, let's not forget. Kaplan comes in, does his famous Twitter videos, and has some decent success with the roster initially, and then it kind of, well, it goes into a pretty difficult position halfway through the year. Made some tricky calls. TenZ was out, TenZ was back in, and as he says, it was a bumpy year, but I learned a lot. I feel like I have a lot to prove. I'm really hungry to come back stronger and dominate next year. Down but not out. We will be back. So kind of implies that he's either, well, he's very confident that he's still going to be there next season. They could make big changes, of course, Sentinels. They could wipe their coaching staff, wipe their team and start from scratch. I don't think they will. I'm pretty sure that, Rob Moore probably realises that Kaplan seems like a pretty solid coach and a solid guy, and getting rid of him now after he's had a couple of months to try and lead a pretty dysfunctional team doesn't seem to make that much sense. Or hopefully the coaching staff can stay on there. They get another year with these guys and maybe start from scratch with the roster, or at least keep a couple of those players. We've talked about it over the last couple of days, what they might decide to do. Most would expect the Brazilians to depart and go somewhere else, but the contracts, I suppose, will be up for renewal at the end of the World Championship, and then they will decide what their plan is going to be, if they don't already have a solid plan in place, as they probably will. So here we go into the EMEA LCQ, and it was another Karmine Corp classic here. I know in fairness they were on pistols, and this was a nice 4K from Sagetsu, but still, it does look like another classic Karmine Corp round, does it not? Where, you know, somehow even when you do double swing, which is rare enough for KC to actually double swing, they still manage to get, you know, killed by a Ghost, both of them. So the series was a little bit competitive. KC actually did win the map 2 of this series, and ScreaM did hit some nicer, trademark one-taps here towards the end of the game on the Pearl. But in the end, Na'Vi were too good, and actually Na'Vi looked pretty impressive in this series, given that they looked incredibly suspect in the first game they played. They actually looked like they had some idea what they were doing this series, and it was too much for KC.
Well, swing is good actually. Zyppan going to find both of them. Beautiful opening here, XMS and Zyppan.
Shout is in rotation, and Na'Vi quite low, hold on!
Shin got 2 there.
He found both of them. Yes, the HP was low, but they must towards CT.
ScreaM's
secure some space. This is beautiful. Hard for zyppan to isolate. Still deadly as ever.
Putting it up early here, trying to run the clock down a little bit. The double swing comes through. ScreaM will seal the deal, Lauren. A 3v5.
Let's have a watch of this again. This is the start. Precision key, zyppan. And there's that lineup. Yeah, just in front of each other.
I didn't know how he caught the second one there, but literally the one shot. They're still going to commit to this.
Oh, ScreaM! He just goes in! His screen is just an absolute catastrophe, but he still connects on it. Deep, kind of T-side here. ScreaM waiting for the door cross. He's going to catch Angel this time. And now we're down to the coming in. And now they have to clear him, and they can't. zyppan goes down, and now all on Shao.
Points off. Beautiful wrap from Zyppan. But like I said, the Rolling Thunder gets posted here, and unless you have a smoke at the backside, I mean, there's 2, you're swinging into what maybe feels like a couple of players, but
both
a bit of time.
fight on site because it can get diffused from like this edge.
Available as well, and you see here that pop. cNed's going to try and make this work now.
Can they do this anymore? Is there any life left in them? Anything more in the tank here? The crossfire has to hold. It has to be so
this is really
good.
bold sitting behind the spammable.
The time is starting to dwindle. The first couple of players
Oh.
forward. XMS is
Uh-oh.
going to hear this. The barrel shows a chance, but it's wrecked away.
That was such a nice
cNed
try.
now, heating up. It's on Newzera. Spots him,
Okay.
gets him. 2 more to go.
Wow, unlucky. It was a nice try from those 2.
So Karmine Corp have been one of the big stories of this season because they've got legendary FPS players such as ScreaM on their roster. They should have been way better than they were. They were absolutely atrocious at the start of the season. Internally was a nightmare. They were losing every series in embarrassing fashion, and there was a big argument to say that ScreaM should just not have been on the IGL at all. In the end, their coach comes in, does an incredibly solid job, and is IGLing the roster, and they look quite significantly better. But still, there's a lot of frustrations there. Even you can see the word itself appear here in the original French that ScreaM puts on Twitter to explain everything. So this is the translation. It might not be perfect, but it's going to be good enough. And especially the first paragraph is very spicy, to be fair. So I see a lot of messages on Twitter waiting for this twit longer, and all of you are waiting for it too. Believe me, despite the difficulties and frustrations you went through as a team, I still can't understand the abandonment of a position. This is obviously referring, it seems, to Newzera, who quit the team in the middle of the year. It wasn't going well. He decided that he wanted to be out of there, and he did. He left the team, and it left KC in a really tricky spot. They couldn't sign a replacement, despite the fact, let's not forget, that Heretics have done exactly that. They signed Benji Fishy in for Zeke, who was dropped to, like, he basically left or was dropped, and there was some friction there and they got rid of him basically, and they were allowed to sign a replacement, but KC weren't. So I don't know why, to be honest. And this, like, I feel bad for KC because they would love to have made a roster change or multiple roster changes, but there was a roster lock. They couldn't make any moves, but Heretic somehow could. So I'm sure that must be frustrating these guys. But as Casey says, the Karmine Corp gives the chance, which is so difficult to obtain, this new generation of players who would dream of wearing the jersey, and that one simply abandoned it in a full split. It is beyond my moral codes to give up, let alone to my team. So I'm just saying, like, this morally wrong decision by Newzera to quit. I just hope that the reason for his abandonment has the merit of being defended. So we still don't really fully know. But it is true that I'm a competitor, and then he adopts responsibility for the failure of the roster and hopes the next year will be better. But yeah, really interesting stuff. And we then get this, actually. Newzera replies, who still has Casey in his name for some reason, and says, "It is a shame that Casey lets you write stuff like that when..." Now, this translation isn't perfect because I believe this really means when, for me, like, I think this part, when for me, absolutely everything is restricted. So he says that, like, he can't say what he wants to say for various reasons, but ScreaM can. You know very well that if I tell the whole truth, it is boring for everyone. Or maybe not boring. Shiant is an interesting word, like it might mean something like annoying or like surprising. I don't exactly know. It can be translated a few different ways. But still, definitely some spicy stuff stuff there going on at Karmine Corp. So do you think ScreaM is in the right here about this? Like, what exactly went on with Newzera to quit? But also just why is it even possible that I don't really agree with the entire season roster lock anyway, to be honest. I think that the teams should be able to make changes at some point. There should be a period at some point where there's like a period of a week or 2 weeks where the teams can actually make moves if they want to. That's my opinion. But, you know, they clearly, it's not allowed. The teams have to stick. But Heretics did make a change and they dropped Zeke and they, you know, various reasons. Whether Benji Fishy was like an emergency substitute technically that they brought in, I don't know. But KC clearly weren't able to get away with it. And that might be what Newzera is saying is like, look, there's more to this than meets the eye. And it seems to be the same way from the ScreaM perspective as well. But whatever the case is, KC's season is done. Na'Vi go through. And yeah, pretty impressive from them to be fair. 13-6 on Lotus. They lost the Ascent, but bounced back relatively emphatically on the Pearl. And yeah, ScreaM top fragged, but it wasn't enough at the end of the day. Tough series from Newzera, of course, but also Giants. They took down KOI and they qualify for champions. They, I think, definitely deserve to go there with the way that they've played. But, I mean, yeah, I don't know. 2 teams from EMEA seems a little bit ambitious as far as I'm concerned. It makes sense, but I've not been massively impressed by a lot of these teams, to be honest. And KOI, it's hilarious because they get blown out the water here, right? Coldamenta with 76 AZS. It's ugly. 14-12 Haven, it was close, then 13-5 blew them out of the park on Pearl. And this also means, by the way, that KOI, this is such a crazy stat, by the way, because they have won both Heretics and Na'Vi against those 2 series so far in this LCQ. The only series KOI won in the entire split, they played 9 games, they won 2 of them, and they were against Heretics and Na'Vi. So they have been pretty terrible, and they've only beaten these 2 teams somehow, but now they've beaten them again. So they could qualify for champions if they beat Na'Vi by only beating Heretics and Na'Vi all season, which is just so insane. But it's very possible because they beat them earlier and they might do it again. But yeah, so Giants have made it. KOI versus Na'Vi is the final deciding series, and the grand finals doesn't mean much because both of those teams qualify anyway, which is maybe undeserved, but still, that's because Fnatic won and therefore their region gets preferential treatment, even if their region might not be any more impressive than any of the other regions in terms of quality around the world, outside of Fnatic being an absolute god squad that is going to be heavily favoured to win champs. Just quickly before we close out here, because the LCQ in Americas re-begins today, and this is a big one. Cloud9 versus Leviathan. The winner of that plays Crew on Sunday to qualify, and that is where we're going to leave it for today. So very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.